Hello, today we're going to be using Visual Studio Code for this video, as Sublime Text is not going to cut it for this. We're going to be making our first project here and learning a lot about if statements and more about data types. So to start, we're going to use Visual Studio Code. I'll have the next video be about configuring it, so in case anybody is stuck, just wait, the next one will come out at some point and you can use that to get this video done. So what we're going to do here is we are going to start off by learning what a module is. Now, a module is essentially a collection of code that is either on the web, and that's why I said in the original video to make sure you select pip, because that lets you get modules. A collection of code that is on the web and is like on Python. So you can use pip to get them, but this one actually that we're going to use actually came with Python. We're going to make a really simple game today. So what we're going to do is we're going to type the keyword import. And what import does is that gets a module. So basically we're getting a bunch of code. We're going to get random. So that's going to be our random number generator. So you can see that we've now imported it. So what we're going to need to do is start by creating a function, I guess. So game function, and we'll create it here by typing def main. And look at that, now we've created the function for the game using the best practice of always having the main function here. Sorry if my font size is small, I can make it bigger if that is something everybody needs. So now we've created this main function, what we're going to do is we're going to use this random now. So we're going to do random dot randint. That's what we need. We're actually going to need to set a variable to that. We learned about variables last time. You might be able to guess what this does. This right here gets a variable. So it gets a random integer though. So let's start off by creating a variable. We'll call it, I guess, just randint, and it'll equal this. And then randint, if we hover over it, we can see it returns a random integer in range a, b, including both endpoints. So what this means is we're going to go within these parens that I wrote, and we're going to write, I don't know, 1, 2, I don't know, 50, 100, why not? So that means this is going to give us a random one of these from 1 to 100, including 1 and 100. So we could get 1, we could get 100, or any number in between as this randint here. We might also learn something about loops this time, but we'll see. So what we're going to do is we're going to set, let's do 3 guesses for now, I guess. So what we'll do is we'll do guess equals. Now, I'm telling you this now, this is not going to be the best written program ever. This definitely will be more optimizable and more efficient in the future. We can make it like that. But for now, I'm going to try and keep it simple so it's understandable. Any problems, please write them in the comments below. So we're going to say guess is equal to an input. And what an input is, so now this is a lot of new stuff here, but bear with me. An input is going to take in an input from the terminal. So basically, it'll take a user input in. For example, let's just say input what's your. So as you may know, this is a string. Try and look at these and go, oh, I spelled what's wrong. But try and look at these as I'm going. Notice, oh, that's a string, that's a boolean, that's a integer, that's a float. This is going to be an integer, this is going to be a string. Well, it could not be a string, but we're going to make sure it is a string, so don't worry about that. And then I guess I'm just going to call the main here, and that's basically, actually we'll do if name equals main. Since you're going to run this, it's not a additional. We'll do that. Best practice, I'll stick with it. For Visual Studio Code, if you're trying to run it, you just click this little button at the top. It'll say, what's your guess? We'll give it a guess. As you can see that we did it wrong, so now the guess is going to be touching that. There's no space like this, or that. It's just blank. So we'll give it a guess of, I don't know, none for now. And it'll go, okay. And it'll accept it, and it'll move on. But you can see we've actually given it a guess, and it finished the program afterwards. So what we're going to do is we are going to now do the same thing, but actually make use of this guess. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, now we're going to, the guess, sorry, earlier I said it was a string, but it's also actually going to be an int. That was my fault, so that was wrong. So sorry about that. The guess is going to be an integer when we take it in. So since we're not going to have any checks to determine if it is an integer, we're just going to say, like at the end here, int only, please. Since we're not going to be checking for only int yet, but we'll do that in the future, I promise. And then we'll do something like this at the end, just to make sure it looks nice. So what we're going to do, and we'll do a bunch of tests as we go. This will take probably 10 to 15, maybe 10 minutes to get done. So now we've created our guess. What we're going to do is we're going to write a if statement, which we'll learn about now. So an if statement is basically it'll compare things. So we'll say if the random number generated is greater than, so just like in a normal math class, you'd keep track of it. You'd be able to tell if it was greater than. If it was greater than our guess, and then we are going to tell our user that their guess was too low. Then we'll use what's called an elif statement. What an elif statement does is it's saying if the first one's wrong, then we'll run the second one. If the first one's right, this will never get run. So remember, if you want to have multiple things run dependent on conditionals, make sure you use just another if statement. But we're going to use an elif since it can't be greater than, less than, and equal to all at once. It can be greater than or equal to, but at the same time, that's not useful for our situation. So what we're going to do is we are going to do elif guess is greater than randint. So assuming that this random number generated was actually lower than our guess, so we guessed too high, then we are going to tell our user, guess what? We're going to tell them that they guessed too high. So your guess was too high. Finally, we're going to use what's called an else, and what an else does is it says if everything else is wrong, then run me. So basically, if it's not greater than, it's not less than, then the only other option is that it's equal to. So we don't even have to write if it's equal to. We'll just know by default that it was equal to, and then we can say u1, because the goal would be to get the number. So now, if we run this, you'll notice that it's kind of boring. We'll put a number in, say 13. Oh, there's a problem. Oh, I see. Okay, so this is my fault here. So error messages are important to look at. They're scary at first, but everybody will figure it out. Basically, what this is saying is that I'm trying to determine whether, you see, int and string, we learned about those last time. Guess is still determined as a string, so what we need to do is use this, and that'll convert it to an integer. And since we know, now, we will still get an error when if our guess is sent in as a string, which we can learn how to fix in the future, but for this video, it's not necessary. So if you look and I write 13, it will say your guess was too low, meaning that the number was higher than 13, which statistically makes sense. And if we try again and we say 100, the odds are, yep, our guess was too high. Now, I'm not going to keep running this till we get it, because that'd be dumb. What we're going to do is we're going to do something. We're going to basically, at the start of this function, we're going to create. So you gotta remember, everything runs in order. So it's running this, it's running this, it's running this, it's running this, this, and so forth. So if we do this, and we do what's called a while loop, we do while true. That basically means run forever. We want it to run this forever. So this will run all of this code forever, having this here. So if we run it now, we should be able to guess 13, that was too low. We guess 73, that was too high. We guess 50, that was also too high. So since we know 50 was too high, it's lower than that. We'll do 25. That was too low. 35. That was too high. 32. Too low. 34. Too high. Answer was 33. And see, look at that, you won. But it doesn't stop at you won. It'll just keep asking us to guess. You won and everything else is no different. And we can go higher than 100. So how we can fix all that is we're going to write break at the bottom here, which will stop this from going on infinitely. So now, we'll do it again. Now it's not going to be 33 next time, which is problematic, of course, because that means we got to solve it again, but 33 is too low, 66 is too high, what about 44? Too low, 55, too high, 45, too low, 48, too low, 52, too high, 50, too high, 47, too low, 48, It's either 48 or 49. 49, we won, and the program ends. It's no longer asking us. Now, we don't want our user to have as many guesses as possible. So what we're going to do is we are going to limit those. But first, we're going to make sure that's not higher than 100 or lower than 1. So how we can do that is, as you may have guessed, what we can do is at the very beginning here, we'll make this first one an elif, and we'll create an if statement at the top, and we'll say if guess is greater than 100, and we have to do int because we have to make sure it's a number and not a characters. So if the guess is greater than 100, we will return some feedback to our user. So we'll say it's greater than 100, guess was too high, cannot be higher than 100. Now, do you have any problems with this so far? Please write them in the comments. I'm going to do my best to get back to anybody who has trouble and to assist with, obviously, helping them fix any errors they may have or anything like that. So if anything is not understood, then feel free to write it in the comments and I will explain it to you personally. So we'll write elif and we'll do that. So we'll do int guess. So we'll make sure that our guess is an int, meaning that it's a number. And then we'll say it's less than 0. We'll do the same thing. We will give some useful feedback to our user. And we will say that was too low, cannot be, actually we got to do below 1. Cannot be 1, or it cannot be lower than 1. So now we're giving feedback for every possible scenario, except for when there's would have been an error, but that'll have enough feedback on its own. So now we've created a functional game. But the problem is our game will go on forever until there's a winner. So let's try and add some functionality to it. So like I said, it runs in order every time. So this isn't going to spin. So say we create a new variable. We say turn equals 0. And then we'll say while, instead of being while true, we'll do while turn, lowercase turn, it is case sensitive, is less than, and then we'll pick a number. So let's say you have 10 turns. So once your turn hits 10, this will end. Or actually, we'll do 11. Or actually, less than or equal to 10. So 10 or under, will continue. And then every single time, right at the very beginning of your turn equals turn plus 1, meaning that it'll equal whatever it was before plus 1. So if we run our code, you can see that we do 50 to start. That was too low, so we'll do 75. That was also too low. We'll do 98. Too high. How about 88? Too low. 94. Too low. 96. Too low. 97. Okay, we won, and it's over. Now, let's see what happens if we start spamming. So, 8. Oh, and look at that. Our program ended after 10 turns, and that's because of this here. Hopefully this was a decent tutorial. If anybody needs any help, please state in the comments. That should be it. Thank you guys all for watching, and have a good night.